Manners respect people. Always manners respect. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Well, people still cold outside, and your heart better be warm. You got it, people? It's cold outside, and your heart gotta be warm. As we proceed, people, with a history of greatness, or a history of amazing people. So, again, the people them highlight are people who have all them definitely smart army, so we can't say them have sense. So, again, it's I feature them ladies here because these ladies, it, when them speak, them have something to say. How about that? So I say as much as as much as I'm sharing these people, I am also learning from these people, right? So we did Angela King, we did Shabazz Ali, we did Queen Afua. She she have a lot of interview with a lot of people, you know. Like again, she's up there in age, but she's been doing spiritual therapy for a long time, right? So I just kind of get introduced to her a little bit. But when me I Google and I see how much like her profile comes up all over the place, and lots of interviews she do when she was younger. I mean, she's up in age, but she sound solid same way. And her mother still alive. Her mother is 90. She said, yes, them people them live long enough. I just listen to one bigger man to him reach 100. Like I go do a profile on him too. Well, not him, but the people them live for reach up in the age them people don't realize it. It's attainable for people live good with health, right? People live long with good health. So one of the things when I say we have to focus on our health, how we eat, how we live, right? So this now is our next doctor, and I tell you, say them doctor here have lots of big words where we can't pronounce. Like them have to pronounce it, and them have to actually go over the words over and over to see um finally get it right. Now I massacre the people them name and words because me not have them PhD and all of them D's and all of them letters there. So this is Dr. Ahmad, Dr. Imani. I'm gonna tell you say, okay, until them reach out to I never knew. I tell you say from me I use him content and stuff. Me I promote him channel and me reach out to him to the on Instagram, but obviously him him not gonna reach out back in right away because them people are famous, and famous people not really give people like ordinary people no blind. Well, but now I say that. Not all of them. Some of them treat people like with a little bit of respect or some respect. So I reach out to him to see if Because all of the people them when know would I definitely love it to have interview with them people that eventually in the future. Come tell us I love the facts of them people, them history and them stories so amazing. So I love that. So this is Dr. Imani Tafari Ama, and it's on how epigenic can save black people. Epa, epigenic. Again, people I'm telling you, just start, so I don't have to take it easy with the big words them right off at the bat. So let's hear what Dr. Imani has to say, people.
What femicide is and the history of femicide in Jamaica.
Well, femicide is women being murdered because they're women. And how does that work in Jamaica? Well, of course, you'd have to look at our colonial past to understand the vulnerabilities that especially women of African descent have faced in this country. And from the minute that people were captured in Africa, you're about your business, and somebody comes and captures you to sell you into slavery. And you're marched overland for over 300, 500 miles in some cases. Can you imagine that? From here to Montego Bay. And then you're incarcerated in a dungeon underneath what is called Cape Coast Castle, built by the Danes. And that's when they occupied Ghana, what we now know as Ghana on the west coast of Africa, for over 200 years before they sold to the British in 1850. And you're underneath this castle for 5.5 months, being stored like objects before being transshipped across the Atlantic for another 3.5 months. And you get to the Caribbean. And both for production and for reproduction, you are exposed to extraordinary violence in every sphere of your life. I mean, I don't know if you've read Thomas Thistlewood's diaries. He documented in a very
Okay, and I wanna do a piece on him too. Thomas Thistlewood, right? And I tell you, say them people are just these people are jumping way ahead of everything. These people are jumping so far ahead of everything. I'm gonna do a thing on Thomas Thistlewood because he was like him did own a plantation at Jamaica. So we just I said we're gonna get to enough people, but just let the doctor continue.
Thistlewood's diaries. He documented in a very precise way what took place on plantations, from the seasoning farms where men were routinely sodomized, especially in front of the community to demoralize the community. And women, of course, were routinely raped for both the pleasure and the production purposes that the plantations were purposed for. So when we talk about femicide, the lifespan of someone who experienced enslavement was not more than 20 years, 30 years at the most. And you had children that you saw sold off as objects again for profit. And so emotionally, psychosocially, you experience death on an everyday basis. Never mind what you physically experience by being beaten or starved or raped again or yes, overworked and murdered in so many different ways. If you again read Thomas Thistlewood's diaries, you're shocked at the devices that people invented to defecate in somebody's mouth, for example, and to make
Yes. Thomas Thistlewood. Him me tell you say me gonna do a piece on him come after Black History Month. Come tell you say many our situation where we in, right? Or we live with each other. It's how we live with each other from before. It's like it's in our way or something where we have to try to understand, to get over. Right? But me tell you, so that brother then, him did sick. Right? As we proceed, people.
To defecate in somebody's mouth, for example, and to make sure that they held it there for days before they had to swallow. Those, I mean, there are people who experience that, committed suicide, and women committed infanticide to make sure that their children wouldn't grow up in a system like that. So we have inherited wounds in an epigenetic manner because it has passed down in our genes. And I think that what we experience now with women being again exposed to murder in a very routine way, it wasn't even like that 30, 40 years ago, because when the violence started in the 1960s, it was more of contestation between men. And, it was political violence in the 1970s, coming up to 1980, which was a watershed when some 800 people were killed in political violence, which, of course, is another story. And this is where the two main political parties, the People's National Party and the Jamaica Labour Party, have um, armed their supporters to fight against each other, ultimately to colonize the votes in enclaves that we now call garrison communities, because they're politicized.
You see, she used the word garrison again. It's not neighborhoods, it's not community, it's just um garrison, it's ghetto, them words there. So when you put them words there to the place them, right? The people them accept the mentality there, right? And that me did I talk about from before with the two-party thing, or the two-party are the same. The two-party are the same. I play a tape where me show you say in every country pretty much you have two parties, and it's always against each other, right? The party them set up so we can fight against each other. That's why I say people love parties more than how them love them neighbors. But them see them neighbors way more than how them see them politicians and them people there. Them see them neighbors 7 days a week, right? Them see them politicians once in a while, right? What I said, this is what one of the things the moment said we can't blame other people. We have to look upon it and realize that the things where we are doing, it's not benefiting us. That are the key, Who's benefiting from all these situations? As we proceed, people, I didn't even know that she was a Jamaican, first of all, right? Because me say, when people have sense, I don't mean it doesn't mean say it a come from one location, right? No mean say you come from this area and you're smart. It's people are smart all over. It's just certain people in certain area choose not to be smart, and it's their choice and follow fashion. As we proceed, people, I tell you, say them program are them very educational because you see when you look at it, we can't say there's a problem, right? And don't look overall at what's happening around us, right? As we proceed,
They're politicized so that people of a certain stripe are the ones who benefit from the housing arrangements and that kind of thing. So um, in the 90s, a pattern emerged where women would be surrogate victims. So you can't catch Kwaku, you catch him shot, where a man would be the target of another man's violence. And you can't find him, so you kill his mother or his sister or his child. And
and that's what I say. That's the next thing to how that never make no sense. Say that just that word there, that phrase there. Well, me tell you say that one I think was supposed to be blasphemy too, because how have nothing to do with somebody, but you look on somebody, right, and choose that person when that's not the person. How you feel good knowing how that never make no sense, because you're not getting the person will do you wrong, another person there. So all of them Kwaku can catch Kwaku, catch him short thing. We say it over and over, and it becomes a practice. It's like you say, okay, then fine, you have to take revenge, no matter what. It's something we have in a, it's something I'm tell you say these things where we say over and over, we don't understand so we curse every day, you know. These are the curse we curse every day ourselves. We just put this burden upon ourselves. So we're not good enough to be ourselves. We have to be somebody else. As we proceed, people.
And so we see this pattern emerging in Jamaica. Until now, women become direct victims themselves. You know, you never can get over the enormity of the incident with Kayla Mont in St. Thomas, where she had been robbed, telling her sister about it. She was swearing. And the policeman attacked her, killed her. She was pregnant and almost killed her sister too. So you think that there's a line that we have crossed because the sacredness of life has dissolved, and the indiscriminate kind of killings that we now see shows that we have lost values and attitudes that we were trying to retrieve in the 80s and the 90s. Under the PJ Patterson government, that was a whole big project, but I don't think they succeeded in retrieving that lost sense of decency. So, of course, we cannot think about femicide in Jamaica without also looking at what has been emerging in terms of women who are partners or family members of men who work as soldiers or police or security guards. And I did actually a study of these kinds of incidents. I collected about 20 stories off the internet, and this was not an exhaustive kind of search of different instances where partners of persons whose job allow them to have a gun at their disposal have been the perpetrators of murder suicides. And there was one notable attempt at suicide that didn't work. This policeman from Portland who killed his partner out in the marina. She had left him, and he persuaded her to have a conversation with him in a public space, and apparently she thought it was safe to do so. And right there in the gazebo, he shot her and then shot himself. And fortunately or unfortunately, he didn't die. So he actually went to jail, and after 6 years of trial, he was convicted of murdering his partner, which is one of the rare instances when you look in the literature where this attempt at eliminating yourself from the scene of the crime doesn't work. So that bears some studying. And the pattern of um, ownership of the partners is very consistent in terms of thinking that if this person leaves the relationship, you have to take them out of life. And there was a case of the security guard at the tax office downtown where the partner came in and said, "I'm going to kill you today." And she said, "Right here in front of everybody." And he said, "Yes." And 6 shots later, he killed her and then killed himself right there. And there was a case of the woman who was dropping the child to school. And the man came and right there in front of the child, he killed her and killed himself. So there have been a number of these kinds of instances. The soldier, in Mandeville who, cut his partner's throat and then killed himself similarly. It says to you there's a cowardice at the bottom line, because if you kill yourself, that's the cowardly way out. And if you think that you can
that's
have the
that's
authority,
that's that's people. Me tell you, say them things are serious, right? Me no know, oh, you not do it first to yourself. Oh, that me not understand, If you are gonna do it, what make you not do it first to yourself? Try it out by yourself first, right? Me just say, if you are gonna do it to yourself first. Do it to yourself first. Try it out by yourself. If a gun or whatever, you try it out by yourself first. Me always I say that. So all them not try it by themselves first. After them do it, then them a try. Me say if it now work, you find and that are the thing we do, we so have so much mental issue. Because all of them things are mental issue. The attachment where you feel say if you know want the person, if you know want the person who want there with you, nobody can there with the person. That's one of the most selfish, thoughtless thing. With the sickness on top of that, And recently them have a lady, a police lady where do the she backs up herself too, right? Because some things complication with her. Let me just I tell you, oh, we have issues, but the issues them when we have, we not talk about it. Just superficial stuff. As long as entertainment and party, them things are good. When I talk about respect and them things are not good. Meanwhile, them things they help. the things that when the things that when not help. As we proceed, people.
Have the authority to take somebody's life. That's also a cowardly way out because you cannot do the strong thing, the man thing, which is to walk away, to deal with your wound and to heal yourself and to try again because there are thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of persons in life. Why do you think that you have the authority? But you can connect this to the enslavement history because the fact that we come from a history where our bodies were owned to the extent that they were branded, to the extent that most people still bear the names of their enslavers. And, we as African people are not called Wilson or Patterson or, or, or
Jones.
Smith by accident.
Why have killings of women become so rampant in Jamaica?
It is a breakdown in our communication capabilities. This notion of gender based violence and intimate partner violence is very much topical right now because people are doing more analysis about how it is that, in relationships, the power that is distributed usually, of course, is a masculine kind of power. And of course, in Jamaica, women are not going to take kindly always to being dominated. It's like that, So the pushback, both in terms of women's socioeconomic advancement, because of course more women are going to acquire higher education, and the more education that you acquire, then the more you are aware of the paradox between accepting this God is the head of man, man is the head of woman kind of hierarchy, which is how we are cultured. That's the kind of teaching that most people are exposed to because we are a heavily Christianized society. Per capita in the world, Jamaica has the most churches. So, of course, Christianity was
the most empty churches. The most empty church in the world. Who cares if we not have so much church? Them empty past Sunday. Nobody know the day. Eh? So that's the problem. That's one of the problem where we tell us that our society was full community did based upon church, right? It based upon respect, it did based on community, it did based upon neighborhood, right? So all of them things are well is what's missing. These are the things that's missing, right? Yes, we have a lot of church, but the church the pastor them supposed to be in the community 7 days a week, and then gather up the people them per weekend and bring them God to church, go talk about God. But them things are cut out if the church now make money, the church not interested. So this is all myself. This is part of why society break down. This is why we have so much anger towards each other. Because me know say if you see a person walking at church, walking at the neighborhood on a regular basis, many people confrontation would have died down. Community centers in the neighborhood them where them supposed to go and take out their aggression on the court, basketball, soccer, whatever it is, right? So all of these things are looked at as infrastructure problems, right? Sure. I'm telling you, say when I understand them things that it's not just me learning more, It's just me understanding more. Because when they give you just the headline, you can't see what's causing the headline. As we proceed, people.
The mechanisms that colonialism employed for psychosocial control. And it is working to this day, to the extent that people still believe that God looks white, in the way that they were brainwashed to believe in the enslavement system. So, by extension, the whole patriarchal notion that power is is masculine and that women should be subordinate to this power is at the root of the violence that happens in the household. And if you look at the statistics, the pattern is that domestic violence is responsible for a lot of the murders that we see happening in the society. So, beyond the men who are the chief perpetrators and victims, you also have women being caught up in this web of violence. And it is speaking to the fact that we have not done the healing that should have taken place after 1834, come 1838, when we were so called emancipated. But then again, we have to contend with all the contradictions, because if we still have the queen as the head of the state, then we can't really claim that full fledged.
Okay, and that are one of the problem too. And then keep on going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's like it's never okay. Let's sit down and talk about the issue and come up with solutions. Coming like one tennis ball, you back it over here, so then back it over. It doesn't like it not change, That's why I say the past and the future is gonna be the same if we don't understand it and change it. That's the only way it's gonna change. If Jamaica is independent, they're supposed to have their own court. They're supposed to have everything within the system, but the system has to be corrupt free. All of them things here is people. I keep on saying, okay, then fine. When I say everybody corrupt, show me the people them are not corrupt. Show me the people who are not corrupt. Just show me them now. Just the corrupt people no are sure. So what the people them are not corrupt? So if everybody corrupt, what chance do we stand? What the sense? It's a loop. It's a loop. It's not going anywhere. Stuck in the endless talk, talk, talk. As we proceed, people.
Emancipation. And so, with all this uncertainty about who we are as a nation, who we are as a people, who we are even as individuals, then it is very problematic. People don't work out before they start to have sex and children, whether they can communicate effectively with each other. So then the children enter the picture, and before you know it, you're unemployed, and that's a trigger for violence, especially for men who are supposed to be breadwinners, and if they're not winning any bread.
And it's not supposed to be that way. Just because you know earn no money, that means that you're gonna beat up your woman. That make absolutely no sense at all. And that matter about communication, the biggest issue. These are the core things. Communication, finding people who are like you, instead of people you try to change and try to convince and try to work things out with when you're not supposed to done work that out already and have a goal set. And them things that are the important things. I know. All we always are trying to make it look like oh it not is. But me tell you say not for the problem what we have are our problem. As we proceed, people.
For men who are supposed to be breadwinners, and if they're not winning any bread, then of course the pressure comes from the woman to say, hey, you're not a real man. And that again can wound his ego.
So you see, communication right there. So if a man not have no money, I go call him man not a real man. So obviously that's gonna be war there. So ah, communication, me I tell you, brother. So I love them program, you know, cause we tell the center, you listen, you understand. As we proceed, people.
Again can wound his ego, and then he can take it out on her. And again, because of the whole gap.
Okay, and I see, oh, me I go take it out on her because she call me workless man. That means I can't control myself. These are the things me tell you, say, anytime I listen to them things here, you know. The people them just explain the problems, them always become more problem and more problem. Communication, understanding, empathy. So we need a scientist to tell us that we need better communication. We need empathy, understanding. Wow.
Gang violence pattern, you see that again, women become direct and indirect victims in this maelstrom of human hemorrhaging that we're hell bent on doing. And it's out of the control of the security forces.
I'm gonna tell you so we love use the word hell. That should be a next blasphemy. We just in our sentence, everything we use the word. We just use that word, they use the word. But tell us we curse yourself. Day in and day out, we can't get away from the curses. We just can't. Can we? No. Can we get away from the curses? As we proceed, people. As we proceed.
That we're hell bent on doing. And it's out of the control of the security forces, it's out of control of the communities. And I don't know if we have the will, politically speaking, or even in terms of our social dynamics, to fix it. We're a country that is in the top 3 when it comes to murder capitals of the world. El Salvador, Colombia being close seconds. So we have a problem.
Can you please share the history of skin bleaching in Jamaica?
Well, skin bleaching, again, we have to go colonial, because if you are told that black is ugly, anything too black no good is a proverb that the average child.
And I will tell you that. Who's gonna say something like that to you? And next one of you, next one of you is gonna say that. And we say to ourselves, where did we get that from? How can you keep on repeating it over and over? Blasphemy. People, I tell you, so we never say anything good to each other. It's you see, first thing the was. So every time we talk to each other, we are telling each other so we're not good. You understand the dilemma where we in as a Jamaican and listen to this lady talk, right? The dilemma where we have, it's really how we're talking, the language that we're talking. It's a language of we talk. The language of we talk is a curse language, right? And then we bring out the words in the curse language. So this is why I say when I listen to like other people reason or them reason and communicate. We don't reason and communicate that way. We reason, we argue with hostility. I'm gonna tell you, say, if you listen to two Italian talk, them talking in their language and it sound like say them argue. But at the end, them say ciao, and it done. With we know, that's how it start. That's why I say the very fact that we can't communicate, that's one of the issues. As we proceed, people, we're in a class, uh, we're in school because we have to have class.
Ugly. Anything too black no good is a proverb that the average child grows up knowing.
Okay, and where we learn it from? We know it. Why would we want to know something like that there? Why would we want to say something like that? So when you say we grow up, no, it's we grow up saying it. We grow up saying these stuff. We put it in our vocabulary. It's like a nursery rhyme to we. So repeating it make it becomes a habit. So sometimes y'all talk to each other, hear nothing because in a phone of mine, I say this over and over and over. Oh, people. I'm glad to say our professor talk. The dilemma that we have, people, the dilemma that we have. As we proceed here, sir.
The meaning of in a place like Jamaica. You internalize that. That's racism. That is how.
Yeah, somebody finally called it for what it is. It's racism. It's racism against each other. But we call everybody racist and say, no, we're not. No, we're not. But me same time we say them things that to each other. So we are cut up each other's skin. Them things are hurt, You have to understand these things, people. These things hurt.
How racism becomes refracted in our system of socialization. So the brown child in the family gets better treatment than the dark skinned child. It translates into how the child is treated at school, how you're treated in the workplace, how you're treated in the media. I mean, look at the Observer and page 3 and who gets featured, And so the notion that if you're white, you're all right. If you're brown, stick around. If you're black, get back.
I mean, hear that so many times, and who do I hear with saying that stuff? I hear her saying them stuff all the time, people. This is why I say we're cursed every day. This is what we hear every day. I'm gonna tell you. This is what we hear every day, people. This is how we communicate to each other about. No respect each other. Nothing good.
White, you're all right. If you're brown, stick around. If you're black, get back. Is something that people have had to contend with in a society that gave value in terms of your freedom to whether you were one color stream or the other. And so, again, we have not decolonized this value system. And we have a situation where I don't know if you remember when Joan Andrea Hutchinson went on television as someone who bumped up her hair, and people were calling from uptown saying, take that bumpy head gal off the TV. And she, being a person who critically reflected on the society through comedy, made a whole commentary on that. That bumpy head gal, she made a tape back in the days of making tapes. But it also was a serious refraction and resistance to the dominance of the voice of the sector of the society that we call socially white, or the brownings, the ones who are entitled to have that opinion and have it reproduced into how we organize the society, unfortunately. So the notion of bleaching, back in the day, maybe 40 years ago more, people used to just use Ambien, Nadinola, and it was just seen as, you just want to tone out your skin a little bit. But now the rampant use of these imported gels and creams and
But it had to start. It had to start somewhere. And once it start, boy, it can't stop.
rubbings and all these paraphernalia that people use to change their complexion from black to brown. And this architecture of transforming one's look is supported by the merchants who encourage this.
Now the merchant them a get beat down. Look, it's your choice. And that me say, I got Jamaica, me say red salt, me say blue salt, me say yellow salt, me say orange salt, me say every color salt. All of them are the same thing. What they name? Salt. All them do is change the color. The very fact say it on the market and it has sell, it must be sold to somebody, and somebody is the recipient of this stuff. And that may I try show you say these things, these things are the things that we do. Nobody else them not do it. Right? And we buy it, Well, not me personally, but we as the culture buy it. And I don't see why. I don't see why spending money on bleaching cream. It's not gonna change your personality. That's the whole thing about it. You're still gonna be the same person. You're still gonna be the same person if you if you change it to pink, purple, blue. It's still gonna be the same person. As we proceed, people.
This practice by bringing the products in, and so you have to wonder at a society that doesn't cauterize the practices that are alien to a sense of self-making, a sense of um, uh, elevating oneself in a development, in a sustainable development kind of way. This is something that is leaving people behind, whereas the UN, the United Nations, has a mantra that says, leave no one behind. So we need to be more intentional about uh, speaking out, acting out, making policy that will prevent people from harming themselves, because melanin is something that enables us to use our pituitary gland for producing and reproducing our intelligence. Now, when you deracinate your skin using skin bleaching products, and when you use chemicals to straighten your hair, not only is it disfiguring you in terms of how you look, but it is also sending a message that you have no value, that you don't value what your contribution is to this world in terms of your own embodiment and your own interaction with other people in the society. The fact that your self concept is hinged to a racialized platform, a racialized model of how we should look, then people are now so hooked on weaves and these kinds of artificial self-representations that you don't quite know who a person is. So when you hear the police,
And that's why we tell you, so if we keep parties at daytime, if we keep parties at daytime, it's much better. Then you can see people instead of when you keep party at nighttime and you can't see the people them, right? The things that I'm saying, some of them things I know, it's to me, it's just self-sacrifice when I look at it, right? We just are we are the wanna beat up ourselves. We put ourselves in our own position where we don't worth what we're truly worth. As we proceed, people.
uh, speaking out, acting out, making policy that will prevent people from harming themselves, because melanin is something that enables us to.
And I don't think them say them can unless them ban it, right? Them ban cocaine still coming out the country, right? Them ban this, them ban that. I'm saying doing these things to yourself. I say you probably need more people for go to the yes, more psychiatric people than banning it, because having self-worth is one of the greatest strength, right? Because if them ban it, then it go even self more. I understand still, but me say if them ban it, them are gonna find a way for smuggle it in. Come on, we're Jamaicans. We're gonna find a way, especially when it bad. As we proceed, people.
Us to use our pituitary gland for producing and reproducing our intelligence. Now, when you deracinate your skin using skin bleaching products, and when you use chemicals to straighten your hair, not only is it disfiguring you in terms of how you look, but it is also sending a message that you have no value, that you don't value what your contribution is to this world in terms of your own embodiment and your own interaction with other people in the society. The fact that your self concept is hinged to a racialized platform, a racialized model of how we should look, then you know people are now so hooked on weaves and these kinds of artificial self-representations that you don't quite know who a person is. So when you hear the police describing a wanted person and saying the person is of a bleached complexion, then you know that we are really twisted in our interpretations of who we are.
How important was and is the griot to African cultures?
Oh, so the griot is the storyteller. The griot is the person who keeps the memory of the community alive in their minds. And I don't know if you remember the story of Kunta Kinte in Roots, and how the stories are passed down from generation to generation. And that is how we connect with the ancestors who are with us symbolically from the past, who guide us in the present, and therefore who are with us in the future. So,
Whoa, the lady say it. Past, present, and future. I told you guys, man. And at the same thing, when we look a bit, we used to sit down around and stories we used to tell. We used to, like, I tell you, say my grandfather used to, at night time, when I just wash the mango and yam them in the dark. And if say, because of the mortgage. Look, when we a little bit I grew up, man, this is when we say we used to have a community. This is what the community mentality was it was man, it was real. It was a real thing. So we don't know about the storyteller, but me tell you said them like that's how we used to sit down and tell story. So I know that as our past. Me never know say there was a special person who used to the village of Jamaica. As we proceed, people.
present, and therefore who are with us in the future. So it's a lateral sense of engagement with time, in opposition, therefore, to the Western notion of commodifying time, like time is money, don't waste it. We engage with time through the memories. And unfortunately, a lot of our memories have been erased because of this intentional brainwashing that we have gone through the colonial experience, which is a holocaust in and of itself, called Maafa. It's a Swahili word that means total disaster. And so you cannot tell the average Jamaican right now that they are African, even though 90% of the population is predominantly of African descent. You can tell the Indian that they're Indian, and they have a clear sense of what Indianness looks like and feels like. And we even absorb that because, of course, what dal and bath is, that's the kind of food coming from there and where Indian communities are.
Yes. Them Dalambad thing there with hold on the with the curry green mango and them things there. Yes, yes, yes. When me a little pit and me grew up around um them people there were met delicious. Yo, me I tell you say in a every culture man, in a every culture when the people they make them food man, trust me, it's amazing. It's just yeah, yes. Every culture when they make them food, it's nice. Not all culture, but most culture enter and cook. All the vegetarian, me tell somebody say, there's so much variety of vegetarian food. But just because them understood to what them consistently eat. But there's so much different vegetarian food out there, trust me. And the dal and bat man, trust me, with the with the them have this leaf where this it coming like time and a shadow bomb or something like that it name. Anytime I got Jamaica, me always try to find it and cook with it. Anytime you put that in the curry, man, yes, man, curry turn up, man. As we proceed, people.
Very clear about who Chinese are, whether it's the old Chinese or the new Chinese in Jamaica. It's a very clear sense of identity. If you ask who the Jews are, you have no notion, the Syrians. But you ask about the Africans, and then people look sideways at you and wonder if you're going mad and have a retort ready for you to say, no, no, well, you're Jamaican. But if you came from Africa as corn and are planted in Jamaica or Trinidad or Tobago, you don't become peas, you're still corn. So it is, again, a disconnect between our past selves and our sense of history and the loss of that sense to the reconstruction of ourselves in other people's image and likeness. And therefore, that's the recipe for cognitive dissonance, a sort of madness in fact.
Please explain how Africans maintained African spirituality after being enslaved in the Caribbean.
Oh, African spirituality is a big part of our resistance package. If you look, for example, at what happened in Haiti, in Cuba, in Trinidad and Tobago, the Orishas maintained a connection with Igbo belief systems. So even though they outwardly converted to Catholicism and praised the saints, apparently, it was a cover up for behind the scenes maintenance of awareness and worship of Olodumare, of Ogun, Oshun, Shango, Obatala, Yemaya, the goddess of the ocean, who guided our spirits across as we made that transition from Africa to the Caribbean, you know. She's called Yamoja in Brazil. And the maintenance of this belief system, even when you look in the South, in the South Carolinas, um, there's this commonality of maintaining this connection to Africa through that recognition that our beliefs were not just arrested and decimated rather, as the popular narrative says in the slavery experience. We actually had mechanisms of keeping the drum alive even when it was banned. You know, people still understood the messages that were being conveyed through that drumming, that talking drum. And when you look at Kumina, in St. Thomas, for example, where Africans came the longest and the latest, that ability to still maintain that spirit possession practice to this day is a demonstration that intergenerationally we can still hold on to a sense of who we are under the most dire of circumstances. And Pocomania is an fusion that shows us that, you know, interweaving of African beliefs in the Christian.
I wonder if them people spoke up people them are, and the Kumina people then still the boat. Cause them things I remember them things and I tell you about jump I'm a little bit, and time them man they beat them jump them me tell you say you feel it in your soul, And time you got them me tell you, you can't fall asleep when them things that go out. Me tell you say with spirituality man. Before it went strong, We did and that me I tell you say with greatness there's no limit to a greatness. There's no limit to a greatness. I'm gonna tell you say eventually the change are gonna come, This is why I'm saying more these people more highlight them. Sure say them people some of them still alive and some of them past, present and future exist. One talk, doctor.
Believing of African beliefs in the Christian tradition and maintaining that African flavor. Rastafari has come as an indigenous kind of perspective to show that you can intentionally also claim that your God and your King comes from Ethiopia and without apology make that assertion in spite of the fact that in a colonial context people were charged for sedition and being insane and thrown into the madhouse for this kind of um, uh, announcement. That's what Leonard Howell actually experienced as the first Rasta in Jamaica. So the
And Leonard Howell, you know what times him name come up for the whole month. I never do nothing upon Leonard Howell yet. But telling say it's like something I forgot to do a marathon upon so much people because there's so much great people will make such a drastic change upon society. But not just for race alone, so many different other race and so much different other race learn from for race. Leonard Howell, me I go do a piece for him. As we proceed, people, me love them information, Jado.
the fact that you can transcend your circumstances. I went to the Virgin Islands, for example, and this was pretty remarkable for me that in spite of this transition into the Caribbean, people still brought the seeds of the baobab tree with them. The baobab tree is a tree that once you plant it, it doesn't start bearing under 100 years, and then it remains bearing forever. And the fruit and the powder from the fruit that you get is very nourishing, very sustaining to the body. Now, people who were taken from the continent.
I wonder if I think into a share talk. Barbas tree. I want to name some. I never hear that before. I don't me I tell you say every day me come with my book, Me there shuffle and I try pull out the book. As all the information then just a spit people. Barabbas tree. I want your Barabbas tree. I must think into that. 100 years before it bear. As we proceed, people.
From the continent still brought those seeds with them. There were 25 trees of the baobab variety when I went there. And there was a woman who was the spiritual keeper of these trees because it demonstrated that connectivity, that sense of resistance. Because these trees, when you look at them, they're so massive that when you hollow out the trunk, 40 of us could stand in that hollow to show you the strength and power of those trees. So they brought those trees to bear witness to the fact that we came from another place, another space, another time, and that our sense of resistance has connection to nature. So the fact that you're able to make that move to not just be in this temporal space but to also be extra temporal, metaphysical. It's very powerful, and the fact that our dance movements in the West can be connected, because that's what Lantonette Steins did with Lacadco. When people used to do butterfly, she went and compared how people danced in West Africa and with the butterfly that people spontaneously produced in Jamaica in the dancehall space, and the moves were the same. And when I see how the Anansi stories that we tell in Jamaica are the same Anansi stories in Suriname, in Ghana, and we say poto poto and chaka chaka. We even mention some of the
Poto poto,
language patterns.
poto poto, poto poto. Where poto poto mean again? Poto poto. Me know chaka chaka, but poto poto. Poto poto. Me no remember that one there. Poto poto. How you use that in one sentence? Me know chaka chaka. Boy, me I tell you people.
Entirely lost it. And what we need to do is make more efforts, especially through learning a language, to make the connection. Because when I learned Swahili, then I was able to open doors to understand what people were saying on the other side. And I think, for the next generation's sake, we have to open back those doors.
Can you provide some examples of traditional African spirituality in modern Jamaican society?
And even the ways in which we treat with birth and naming and death, some of these rituals are very much still connected to our past. So, for example, I grew up in rural Jamaica, where before it was popular to take people to the morgue, people used to put ice on the bodies, and people would dance around the bodies, and that I understand. People in Africa do the same thing. They wash the bodies, they perform rituals like that, and for the 9 nights of the transition that one makes from this life to the other life, the pattern of people singing, eating certain kinds of food. In fact, the food that is cooked is spirit food in a lot of instances here, right here in Jamaica, in some of those rituals. That people don't put salt in it because spirits don't eat salt, and that people want white rum and that kind of alcohol engagement. If you even notice how the National Dance Theatre Company used to perform Kumina when Rex Nettleford was alive, he engaged with the dance to convey that maintenance of our spiritual connection, and the white rum that is a product of the plantation was still also a conduit for engaging with the spirit world. And if you know what also took place before the Haitian Revolution, Dottie Bookman was a Jamaican spirit master who traveled from Jamaica to Haiti and assisted in the performance of a ritual, a voodoo ritual, a voodoo ritual that was a part of the rite de passage into the revolution, which of course took 12 years to happen. But it showed you how, even from a fighting perspective,
When it's time to
Yes, people. I tell you, say, some of them things I may learn for the first time. I'm tell you, say, I leave Jamaica for a while. I visit a lot, right? But then I don't like say I go back for history lesson. Yes, I go back go visit, and when you listen to them people I will talk and up close, you understand a lot of things, right? As we proceed, people.
fighting perspective. The spirits were invoked as part of that resistance movement, so that the connection to the other planes of life have never been abandoned entirely, even though we have been so Christianized. So to even look at how people make dukana,
Blue jaws.
I went to Africa and I was amazed to see that people wrap the cornmeal mixture in the banana leaf in the same manner. And so through food culture, through other forms of everyday rituals, through prayer, through belief in a higher being. This didn't come in, from a Western point of view. The notion that Olodumare and the pantheon of gods that we have even lost the names of um, were spirits that were available to the living on an everyday basis that people could communicate with. Was is something that I think we still maintain and um, unfortunately have lost in many quarters. And the fact that Nanny was reputed to be able to bounce bullets off her buttocks, it's not just a myth; it's a capacity that the Maroons maintained also to have that spiritual communication with the higher powers. So I think that yes, the more things change, the more they certainly remain the same.
Do you believe Nine Night has an influence on Jamaica's tradition of late night partying?
Right. So I don't know if you also remember the set girls. The set girls were on the plantation, um, orchestrated to entertain the Bakamasa. Yes. So,
The set girls. I guess that's where the cheerleader thing come in from. People, me I telling you no. The set girls. The more things change, the more them stay the same people. But I say, anything where you put woman, you have some hot girls, you can't sell anything. Eh? I really say them have set girls. As we proceed, people, me never hear that name there before either.
orchestrated to entertain the Bakamasa. Yes. So the women had to come out and dance for their um, edification. And there's a part of the ritual that they engaged in as a disguise, because sometimes when they were planning um, rebellions and resistance and runaways and so on, they would use those occasions as cover for to distract from what the real operation was. And so, even though they were supposed to be like these sex objects in these dances, they were also using it as a time. Of course, if you're engaged in back-breaking work for 14, 15, 16 hours a day, dancing is a big relief. So, it's sometimes what this woman called, Denise Candioti calls bargaining with patriarchy in that sense. So it's bargaining with domination, bargaining with oppression to carve out a little time for yourself, just like how the weekend markets was a time that was carved out for people to sell their own produce, to make their own money, to have their own time for themselves, their own bodies for themselves for a little time. So we have to see these rituals in a contradictory sense, in a kind of hybrid dual sense. What were people thinking of when they were working? People actually broke the machinery in order to make them not work, to give themselves a little time. And if you notice our engagement with rain, when rain falls, people don't want to go to work. And it's something in our collective memory that says that was the one little time that you get a little time for yourself. You know, it
People, but me love the rain. I love it when me love it when it rain. Because you see, like when it rain, there's nobody outside. Just like when it's snowing. It's not a lot of people go outside when it's snow. Everybody go outside with dog when when it's snow. Snow, rain, anything that not stop them from bringing dog outside. But me always love rain. Me love it when it rain. Me just don't love it when thunder roll and lightning a clap. Them times there. Mm-mm. But me love the rain. Me just love nature. Me just love nature. Because nature are the one thing where it just does what it does. And you have to deal with it. And if you don't deal with nature, nature will deal with you. As we proceed, people.
time for yourself. You know, it has to do with also the resistance that young people have to agriculture, because something in their memory says this is backbreaking, awful, soul wrenching kind of work. And so there's this resistance to farming, even though
Holy man. But me all farming. Like me not understand. Well, maybe me not know. I just love know say me can produce my own food and reap whenever you want to reap. That are the greatest freedom when it comes to food. Cause when you're hungry, it's either you go thief or you go beg. But when you plant your own, create your own job, those are always the things that's always been within me. Well, as we proceed, people, because you see, everybody has their own opinion, right?
farming, even though it can sustain you, it could bring you food, but it is not that experience in our DNA. And we need, again, to expunge those kinds of hostilities, because again I refer to the evidence coming out from epigenetic research, and I'm in one of these groups in um, well, it's based in the States now, but they just produced a report on how it is that we have to start healing ourselves by going into our genes, into our DNA, into our memories, into our social practices, and re-engineering ourselves. Because again, the mass pattern that we have in Chicago, in the shanty towns of Brazil, in the ghettos of Kingston, the pattern is too similar in terms of our self annihilation for it not to be significant. Why it is that we're imploding like this. And so, if you talk about the night as a space where we can channel that kind of reconnection, then we should also develop other similar models. And yes, it has been a way that we translate into the partying, because night used to go on from, you know, this time of the evening at dusk, and it wouldn't end till daybreak. And look at Pasa Pasa. You're probably too young to know about Pasa Pasa, but there you have it, from Wednesday night into Thursday morning. That similar, you know, all night ritual. Somehow our spiritual and our material selves exult in that kind of relief, in that kind of release from the humdrum everyday hardships.
Yes, what it then you have the people that will come for do just them just there for one thing, for unleash the negative. They're not there like everybody else. And that are the problem. So me say if we're gonna have them things, okay, fine, we have a non-alcoholic. Me know say enough people me know say enough people now go come for that. But the day is gonna be non-alcoholic, right? And it's gonna be in the daytime. We start up daytime function instead of strictly nighttime function, right? Because I said some of the solution them people, it's just like-minded people. It's just gonna be like-minded people who are interested, right? As we proceed, people.
Everyday hardships, and you create a sense of another space, another reality in that um jollification, whether it is the rayton or the dance hall, or the night, then we have a space. And that's the pity, that we had all these lockdowns. You could imagine how people became frustrated at not being able to have that available. And so maybe people went a little bit overboard in partying.
A little bit overboard. I think let's just sink the whole ship and done. Me never think so then go overboard. And that may I tell you say even restraint, right? People still keep party when things are when them they shut down the world. Some videos where me see people in pack up in a house together, right? As we proceed, people.
That sense of release. They couldn't manage the lockdown, but there's something in our spirit that needs that kind of connection to music, to movement, to a sense of freedom that we have been denied for too long.
Why do you refer to plantations in the Caribbean as killing fields?
Or the killing fields of Europe. And the reason why we call the Caribbean the killing fields of Europe is because that's what happened. Europe has conveniently packaged the past into a kind of amnesia space
You
where
see,
they
people, package can sell anything, people. The right package can sell. When them put bombs in a package, they must put bombs in a package because once anything packaged right, anything branded right, well, not for us, anyways. We need better ability for brand. That's what we need. Better ability for brand. As we proceed with the packaging.
to a kind of amnesia space where they can conveniently forget because they have benefited from the largesse of our unremunerated labor, speaking ancestrally, and therefore the global north now is developed at the expense of the global south. So people like Emmanuel Wallerstein and Samira Min were the kind of theorists back in the 70s talking about development and underdevelopment being opposite sides of the same coin. And so when you remind Europe about what happened in the Caribbean. They don't want to remember. The CARICOM 10-point reparations plan is there as a talisman to explain that diseases like diabetes and hypertension, which came out of the enslavement experience, has disproportionately affected people of African descent. And the recompense that we seek is not people doling out checks to people, but it is to fix our institutions that have been left in shambles because of this killing fields experience. And the fact that the blind eye is the consistent response when these demands are being met has to do with the fact that there's not a concerted effort on the part of the Caribbean to recover from the killing fields experience because we're still tied to the umbilical cords of the same colonials that enslaved us. And in fact, there are about 15 colonies in the Caribbean today, from owned by Britain, France, the Netherlands. So you have Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, um, the Cayman Islands. You have the Virgin Islands. You have Puerto Rico, owned by the United States. These colonials will not let go of the killing fields of the Caribbean because it has been very profitable and very strategic position, geographically speaking, for them to own these territories. And with the, of course, comprador complicity of our own leaders. So we have to also detangle these relationships politically, socioeconomically, because we still see ourselves as a space for white pleasure. Tourism is packaged in that kind of way.
Again, package. But tell her to say this package thing, can't sell enough people. As we proceed.
And we're only waiting till COVID passes to try to leverage that once again. So until we can see our Caribbean as a space for our own benefit, it is maintaining that enduring colonial legacy. And we need to ramp up the reparations demands because our underdevelopment will not be solved until we make this a reality. And so it's not just a one person who should be talking about it. It should be something that, as a state, as a nation state, we put on the agenda.
All right, people. So that's the introduction to Dr. Imani Taf- Tafari Amma. Look, people, I'm telling you, say, I am a chef. I'm not a PhD in so, but I try my best to make sure I'm not deliberately disrespect their name. And again, these are for educational purposes, people. I'm telling you, say, when these ladies talk, these people know what them are talk about. We might not agree with everything what them say, but them point of view is worth listening to, and we understand and learn from it. You understand? Of course. People, thank you, no. Um, again, me say me not really want to put too much information on each tape because eventually me can download them and can get them like whatever turn into something else, right? Again, people out. We are create our content and our content have to be a certain way. So later on, we'll rally back on our content. We're good to go. Right, people? Manners, respect, people. Thank the people for stopping by. Thank the people that may send out a thumbs up. Seeing people, always manners, respect. Always more coming, people. Because I'm telling you, say all of these information is just finding me for me to highlight. All of these amazing people is finding me to highlight. And me love learn. And don't forget my trip to Africa and my book collection. Oh yeah, and don't forget to buy a sauce. You guys know, people. You have to support the small business them. Up. I'm out.